Good afternoon and welcome everybody to the UNSW Canberra School of Business Open Day information session. I'm speaking from my home in Canberra, which is located on Ngunnawal land. I also acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands upon which each audience member is located. So my name is Vanessa Dawson and I will be the MC today. I'd like to start this session by introducing our expert panel, and I will introduce Professor Deborah Blackman, who is the Head of School of Business at UNSW Canberra.
Thank you very much. So yes, I'm the head of school and I work with a team of around 33 academics who teach a range of disciplines into our business courses. The thing about defence, which we don't always remember, is that it's a multi-billion-dollar business. It's going to be 175.8 billion in 2022 to 23, so a not insignificant business that needs to be managed, organised, run and led. So those are the kind of things that we talk about with our students. And I have done a presentation, which I hope most of you have been able to have a look at, which talks a little bit more about the way we think about our school, what we do and why we do it that way. So I look forward to talking to you.
Thank you, Deborah. Next, I would like to introduce Dr. Samantha Johnson, who is the Undergraduate and Honours Coordinator for the School of Business.
Hi everybody and welcome to the information session for the Australian Defence Force Academy. Yes, thanks Vanessa. I am one of the academic staff members in the School of Business. I work very closely with Debbie. I teach leadership to our undergraduates in second year and I also look after our undergraduates. So as undergraduate coordinator, my job is to be there for the students, to support them, to help them choose their degrees, make decisions around timetables and to help them when they need a little bit more support living away from home and studying at ADFA. So that's my role as undergraduate coordinator, and also as honours coordinator I work with those students who after their third year are interested in moving on to do a fourth year in honours. But I do have in the School of Business, it's an important role because it means that we have one place where students can come to talk to me about any of their courses or any of their concerns, and together we work through those and make sure that the students are supported and comfortable with their studies.
And finally, I'd like to introduce Officer Cadet Tavis Ellis Southwell, who is a Bachelor of Business CDF program student in his final year of study.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tavis and I'm in my third year here at ADFA. I'm a member of the Air Force, a personnel capability officer, which is like a HR manager role. And when I joined the academy, I got put into Echo Squadron, which is one of the 4 squadrons you can get put into when arriving at ADFA. And I'm in my last semester currently studying School of Business.
Thank you, everyone. So we might start, I think, by looking at our UNSW Canberra business program. So, Sam, I might get you to talk about the program overall.
Thanks, Vanessa. And yes, I'm happy to take you through the program. So I'm going to share my screen so that you can see the UNSW business degree. So here it is up on the screen, the Bachelor of Business for 2020. This is this year's program. It's a 3-year program and we have the courses that are outlined in pink are core courses. So for students who decide to do a Bachelor of Business, these are the courses that they will do through the 3 years. So in the first year we have 4 courses: Introduction to Accounting, Organisational Behaviour, Foundations of Management and Business Economics, as well as electives. They have 2 elective courses. They are non-business courses, so there's a wide choice that students can choose from in their first year. In second year and third year, you'll see there are also core courses in business law, data analysis, leadership, international business, logistics management and business capstone. The students work through these courses, but they can also choose from business electives and from general electives from other aspects from other schools in UNSW. So there's quite a lot of choice. The general electives such as strategy management and leadership, law, force and legitimacy, these are electives that the students must do through their degrees. So while we don't have majors in the School of Business, we have one business degree that everybody does. There is a lot of choice in electives as people move through their degree. Debbie, would you like to add anything?
No, I think that's great. I think the real thing is that what we're trying to do is to create a broad-based business experience, and particularly linking it with the different areas which are core areas of defence. So you can see logistics, project management, human resource management, those kind of areas which are going to be the most important when they get into their roles. Because for many people, they won't use their business skills straight away, but they will start to use them as they progress through their jobs in defence. Some people, obviously, as Tavis already said, are commissioned into places where they will be using them, so for logistics, for example, but for many more it'll be as they progress. Thank you.
So just leading on from that, we have had a question which is, are all electives compulsory within the business program?
No. You have to do electives, but you don't have to do, the point of it being an elective is you should be able to get some choice.
And so I can step in there too and support. So if the Bachelor of Business degree is still up on the screen, you can see for example, if we look at second year, semester 1 and 2, there are 3 courses there and you choose 2 of those 3. So there is always choice for students. In second semester, we have three electives, and you choose one of those business electives. So you may choose innovation and organisation or financial management or business ethics. So there is always a choice for students so that they can choose those elements of the degree that they are most interested in.
And also some of the electives, something like business law, which isn't running this year, but it'll run again next year, because we don't run everything every year. What we then do is if you're in second year or third year, you can join that elective. So although it might be listed as a second year elective for how we organise the programme, actually third year would still be able to choose that elective. So that's the other way that we try to give more choice.
And the last thing I would add to that is that my role as undergraduate coordinator is to work with students. So if students are looking to do something that they're not sure that they can do when they're looking at this program, of course they can come and speak with me and we can look at their subject choices and make sure that they can design a degree that meets the requirements and is of interest to them. So there is flexibility built into the program.
I think we should, though, give Tavis the option to say, did he find that there was options or not, just so that it doesn't just sound like it's us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as you mentioned before, Deborah, that obviously sometimes in your second year, you'll be doing subjects that other people do in their third year, even if you're in the same cohort. So yeah, sometimes you feel like you're missing out almost because of that choice. So while it does look on face value like there's not a lot of choice, when you're actually going through the program, it is actually quite hard to decide. So yeah, definitely think the broad range that's on offer and the general approach that the business program offers is actually really beneficial.
Okay, so our next question, and we'll stay with you, Tavis, is what is the difference between the CDF program and the normal business program?
So essentially your first year will be exactly the same. However, once you using this diagram that was up there before, where your free electives are down in the bottom, instead of having free electives, you'll be doing a research component instead. So down where the blue, where the blue ones are, and also where the business electives are, in amongst those, you'll have business research instead. So say in my third year, instead of being able to do project management, I would be doing a business research unit for that unit.
One of the questions we had is this business program open to DCUS students, which is the Defence Civilian Undergraduate Sponsorship? And the answer to that is no. So the Bachelor of Business at UNSW Canberra is only open to trainee officers for the Australian Defence Force. So our next question is actually a question which Tavis. You can answer and I can probably help. But the question is about, did you have experience studying related areas through high school? And if not, how did you find the beginning of your studies at UNSW Canberra?
So I actually studied for 1 year before coming here. But even then, I didn't study anything in line with what I'm studying at the moment. So obviously some people might do a bit of law or a bit of accounting during school. I didn't do any of that. I did a lot of history, a bit of science. So I didn't actually have any transferable skills through high school. But I think a lot of the lecturers understand that, and they start from the basics in first year to make sure everyone's on the same level. And I think everyone has an equal opportunity to do well in each course.
So leading on from that, UNSW Canberra does not have subject prerequisites for its degree programs. So as a means of admission, what we look at is obviously our training officers have to have a job offer through the Defence Force recruiting process, and you need to meet the tertiary entrance requirement for the degree that you wish to study. So our degree entry requirements are set each year, so that is different from other universities, and the tertiary entrance requirement minimum that you need for the Bachelor of Business next year is 80. So our next question is about the CDF program, and it starts with the entry, but then I might pass over to you, Sam, or to Deborah. But it says, what is the entry requirement for the CDF program? So that is a higher entry requirement of 95, and that's based solely on your tertiary entrance rank or your ATAR. There's no adjustment factors or bonus points that can be allocated to that. But the question is, if you don't meet that requirement on entry, on admission, can you transfer into the CDF program?
My response to that is probably not, no, that you must meet that criteria of an ATAR of 95%. But then on top of that, the CDF program begins in your second year of your degree, and you must maintain a weighted average of 80%, which means that we expect you to get a distinction marks all the way through your first year in order to move into CDF. But I might also hand over to our head of school to make sure that my details are correct there.
You might, if you do really, 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 really well, be offered the opportunity to join. So we do review at the end of each year what somebody's ATAR, what somebody's WAM is. And if they have a particularly high WAM, we would normally be looking something over 85. Sometimes we'll look at 80 to 85. But that's the only exception when we would say, and if that person's not in CDF and they've indicated they'd like to transfer, then we will look at it. So it's not impossible, but I would say over the last few years, it's been a very rare thing to happen.
Yes, in the 4 years that I've been involved, I've not seen it. So yes, but that's good to know. Thanks, Debbie.
Yeah, I think if I can also pick up another question that I just saw going past, which was about honours. And you might also want to pick that one up, Sam. But it was about, is the honours a major year? And not really is the answer to that. It's a research year. And so the idea is you would have a topic that you're interested in and you would do a research project that goes with that. So you will do something in more depth, but you won't be doing more talk courses in a particular area. Do you want to pick that up, Sam, on the grounds you're supervising a couple next year? You can talk through your process.
Yeah, so that's absolutely right. So if you're thinking that at some point you might be interested in honours, in your third year you might reflect back on some of the courses that you did, the lecturers that you worked with, and pick an area that you're particularly interested in, but also you'd want that area to be an area that's relevant to the service you're in and even the job that you're in as well, because your honours is not just an opportunity for you to add a fourth year, but it's something that will bring benefit to the Army or the Navy or the Air Force. So you must work closely with them to choose that area of research. Then you would come to me and you would seek an application to do an honours, and we expect you to have an average weighted average across your degree of over 65%. So that's a credit average or higher. You also need to identify a supervisor who you would like to work with, and we approach that supervisor. If they have the capacity to take you on, then at that point you go ahead with the application through the services. It must be approved through the services in the first instance, and then if you meet the criteria, it's approved through the school. then you have just short of a year until October of the year to undertake some research, original research of your own, and to write a short thesis.
Thank you, Sam. So next question is how many business students are expected to start in 2021? And I guess, not knowing, we haven't got the list from Defence Force Recruiting on how many job offers have been made and who's chosen to do business. But I guess as a general guide, how many business students do we have this year?
Yeah, we normally have around 70 students start each year. It varies a little bit, but that's roughly what I would say our BBuzz entry is. There are, there's different targets, obviously, for how many students they want in each stream. And so it seems to work out that we end up with about 70 to maybe 75.
And I think probably leading on from this, and I might throw to Tavis to talk about this, but one of the best things about studying at UNSW Canberra is our small number of students. So if you think of 70 students, what that means for our students studying in the Bachelor of Business, that our class sizes are smaller, our tutorial groups are smaller, and that is just so beneficial in the learning process. So UNSW Canberra as a whole has the lowest student staff ratio of any tertiary institution in Australia. That currently sits at about 9 to 1. So for every 9 students, we have 1 academic staff member or 1 teacher, which is just fantastic. So I might throw to you, Tavis, to talk about your experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree. The relationship that you build with your lecturers and tutors is really strong. So I think at previously when I studied at a different university, your lecturers don't always have time for you as an individual. Where here at ADFA, because you do have that great student-teacher ratio, you have a really good rapport with each one of your tutors and your lecturers, and that's really beneficial. And actually, your mark generally will increase throughout your time here at ADFA because you get better. Because they're there to develop you and really support you. So yeah, it's definitely noticeable having that ratio.
Okay, we have had a few questions actually on, and I did cover off briefly, but I might talk a little bit more about the actual admission process, and it's in regards to the ATAR and how do you get an offer to UNSW Canberra. So first of all of our students that apply have to have an offer through the Defence Force recruiting process, so have to have a Defence Force job offer before we will look at them for admission to UNSW Canberra. Then what we look at is, for admission to UNSW Canberra, is the tertiary entrance rank, so which is 80 for 2021 entry. Now what that means is that can be a total selection rank. So that can be your ATAR. So if you're coming straight out of Year 12, you'll know what your ATAR is. That will come through mid to the end of December, plus any bonus points, or they're now called adjustment factors, that are added on to your ATAR to give you a total selection rank. UNSW Canberra offers 3 different adjustment factor schemes or bonus point schemes, and there's HSC Plus, which is for strong performance in subjects that relate to your degree program, and for business, these subjects are, if you can do business studies, I think English is one of them. So they're subjects that will help you in your business program. You have to get a certain result. It does apply to every state and territory, and you don't have to apply for those adjustment factors. They're automatically calculated through UAC when you put your application in, and you can get up to 5 extra points added onto your ATAR through that scheme. The second scheme is called the Elite Athletes, Performers and Leaders Adjustment Factor Scheme, and that's for people that have been involved in extracurricular activities, sporting activities, music, performance, Duke of Edinburgh Gold Award, Queen Scout, things like that. If you've been involved in cadets and got to a certain level, you can also apply for extra adjustment factor points through that scheme, and that requires you to put an application through straight to UNSW. And the last scheme, which is probably pertinent to this year and being with the COVID-19 circumstances, is called the Access Scheme. And this gives extra points to any students that have experienced disruption or disadvantage during year 11 and 12. So we would encourage all students who have experienced disruption or disadvantage to put an application in through the Access Scheme. This is directly to UAC. There's no cost to this application, and you have to provide supporting documentation on how you've been affected during your studies. That will then be considered, and if you're awarded some points, it will be added onto your ATAR to give you a higher selection rank. So in terms of, we did mention previously, Sam, I might get you to answer this question, but this one is about that there are some extra courses that everyone has to study in the degree programs, a cybersecurity course. Can you talk a bit about the other courses that students, in fact, all of our students have to study regardless of degree program?
Yep, thanks, Vanessa. So these are called ZenGed courses, and these are courses that are open to all faculties, all schools in the faculty. So I'll just share this screen again and show you quite clearly. You can see which ones they are. So you can see the blue, these blue courses here. Strategy Management and Leadership is one of those courses that all students will do, and that can be done sometimes. That can also be done over the summer as well as in the first semester of your second year. Or you could choose Introduction to Strategic Studies. So students choose one of those two electives. In semester 2, those electives are Law, Force and Legitimacy or Introduction to Military Ethics. And again, the students have a choice between those two electives from all schools across UNSW Canberra. In third year, Introduction to Cybersecurity, which is the one that somebody's obviously heard about, that is done as well, or instead of a free elective as well. So while there are some courses that are common to all students and they're a part of their degree, we still have some choice available to students.
I would say, though, that the cyber one, there is an expectation that all students do it. So there's a difference between what is necessarily the accrued program and there's what's the expectation from defence. So, in fact, although cyber does look as if it's an elective, I think we would probably not have any of our students who are from our particular cohort that would not do that one. I'd be very surprised.
Okay, our next question is about how old do you have to be to apply? So I guess there's two parts to that. On the UNSW side, so for UNSW Canberra, you would be finished year 12 as a minimum because you need to have finished a tertiary package, or you may have done some other study after year 11 and 12. So that will dictate how old you are. In terms on the Defence Force recruiting side, as far as I'm aware, you can start and Tavis, you might know more about this, you can start the ADFA recruitment process from the age of 16, I think it is, for all other jobs in the Defence Force. I think it's 16 and a half, but I'll encourage everyone then to talk to Defence Force recruiting about those minimum age requirements where you can start your recruiting process. So next question for you, Tavis, is about your day as a trainee officer and how you juggle your military commitments with your academic studies.
Yeah, so at the moment, while it does change year on year, so the 2 hours in the morning for us, we will do military studies. So that might be PT, that might be learning about regional flashpoints, other terms of military history and leadership. So we'll do that in the periods in the morning, so usually from 8 till 10, 5 days a week. And then in the afternoons, 2 to 3 days a week, you'll also do PT. So you'll do some physical training through those periods. And the UNSW puts all your classes in between those periods so you don't actually overlap. So it's quite well structured. So you also have flexibility over your own timetable, choosing tutorial times as well. So if you don't want to do a tutorial first thing after your military classes in the morning, you can choose to put it a bit later in the afternoon. So again, there's more flexibility around your own timetable. Obviously, depending on degrees, but the School of Business is pretty good with flexibility.
And just following on from that one, how does your business degree relate to your future career in the Defence Force?
Yeah, I think going off what Deborah spoke about before, the business degree at ADF is a pretty good reflection of what is required from the ADF, which is a very general, very broad degree. Because you'll be changing jobs every 2 to 3 years, you're going to have a range of experiences that you're going to need, and all of these will fulfill some kind of role in your future. But at the same time, I think it's also a good reflection of other business degrees at other universities. So it's no different from a different business degree. You just don't major in any particular area, because having that breadth of knowledge and different areas of business is what defence is after. So I think it's definitely, as opposed to arts where you might major in politics or a language, the School of Business has a general approach for a very good reason.
Thank you, Tavis. Next question for Sam or Deborah is, what kind of support services are available to students in the business program?
I'm happy to start with that one. Thanks, Vanessa. There is a lot of support open to students, and as Vanessa and Tavis were saying early on this afternoon, the ratio of smaller numbers to staff means that the students do get quite a lot of support. So they can come to me. Firstly, students can always go to their tutors and their lecturers of anything that is concerning them regarding their academics, or, for example, sometimes students have a medical appointment and so they can't come to class, or there's something that's happening at home that's having an effect on their academic work, and they can always approach their lecturers about that and talk specifically to them. They can come to me and speak to me about it, and of course they can even speak to Professor Blackman if the need be, to go to the head of school. So we are here for our students. They've got that support. They've also got support from the military side, and I'll hand over to Tavis to talk about that as well. Tav, can I give that one to you?
Yeah. So we've all got divisional officers and div staff. So your divisional officer is kind of like your immediate supervisor, the person that looks after you and is in charge of all your welfare needs. So you'll have a good relationship with them as well. So you'll work very closely with your divisional officer, as well as squadron staff. So I mentioned earlier, I'm part of Echo Squadron. You'll also have squadron level staff, which are not your immediate supervisors, but just above them. And as Sam spoke to as well, very good relationship with all your lecturers and your tutors. So you're going to see each other around very often, sometimes in multiple courses as tutors and lecturers. And we also, as students, will have like a student board where we talk about what's working, what's not working. And then we take that to people such as Sam as well, who will actually look at what's going on, see if any changes need to be made. So yeah, there's a really good feedback loop, both with the UNSW and also on the military side as well.
And if I could just add, we've also got some academic support available. So there's always support through the library, through the teaching and learning group, through the all unit, which is the academic language and learning group. So there's, in terms of study skills, to help our cadets improve whatever it might be they need, whether their capacity to research or to write. Also, there's a lot of support in that area as well.
Great, thank you. Next question is an important one, I think, and it says, if not many people enrol into the business program, will the ATAR requirements be affected? So at other universities, yes, entry requirements are based on supply and demand, whereas ours are set. So the actual minimum ATAR you need, or tertiary entrance rank requirement for 2021 for UNSW Canberra Business, is 80. That does not change, because our supply and demand is really set through the Defence Force recruiting process.
But also, can I just also say, I think it's really important to remember that that's not the average of people coming in. So the actual ATAR average is much, much higher than that. It's usually somewhere in the high 80s. So 80 may be the minimum, but that's really not what people are getting. So that's the other reason why it doesn't usually come down, is because there will be that number who have got through.
Great, thank you. Another question for you, Tavis, which we have, I guess, spoken about a little bit, but do you have opportunity while you're studying to apply your area, your studies, into the military, or do you have to wait until you're posted out into your job?
So we do practical work, I guess, during the military studies periods in the morning. So that's when you'll kind of apply what you learn either at through university or through your military studies. So you will have to write things like essays, we'll have to do speeches, things like that. And I think every degree actually adds to that process as well. So while we don't actually use our skills in the ADF while we're here, we definitely use this place as a think tank to start thinking about those ideas and how we might use them in the future. So saying we're doing business capstone at the moment this semester, and we're looking about how what we've learned in the business program is applicable not only outside in organisations, but in defence specifically as well.
And if I could just add a little bit to that as well, it is not uncommon for students to be doing things in tutorials where they're practicing presentation skills, public speaking skills, and planning and preparing for those opportunities, and also doing those things on the military side as well. So there is a nice overlap. And of course, I can't help but to say, given that I teach leadership, that I very much encourage my second year students to be practicing the skills and the behaviours that I teach while they're at ADFA in everyday life.
Yeah. And we are in the process of refreshing the curriculum, and one of the things that's going to happen is the objective anyway is to end up that the students will be doing live projects in the final year as part of the business capstone process. So at the moment they are case study based, and we still will do that. We do a lot of case based work, but we will then be adding live projects into that as well.
So look, the only last thing I'd say is that often as an academic we have students and people talk to us about the application of theory. So, university degrees do have a theoretical base, and students can often find it quite challenging to take something theoretical and make it practical and apply it. But we do work with you on this, and we help, although our degrees will always have a theoretical base, we do work with our students to help them transfer that knowledge into skills and add a practical element to it.
Thank you. Next question again to you, Sam. Is it possible to do an honours year with UNSW Canberra in business if you've completed a bachelor at another university?
Oh, that's actually a question for you, Debbie. Sorry.
No, that's fine. The answer is yes, it is possible to do it. It hasn't really happened because people don't necessarily realise that they can. But yes, what happens is the students would contact, as they would with most universities, they'd contact the staff to look for supervisors, and then they can come in. Yeah.
And another question for you. Does the school align their research more with the defence, community, public or private sector?
Yes, that might not be as helpful as it could be, but the answer is we do all of those things. So we have we've got maybe 3 areas of core strength. The first is in logistics, which mostly is done with defence. So there's a lot of work doing logistics and modelling with defence. Then the second big stream of work is what we call Public Service Research Group. And as the title implies, it's very much working with the public service, but it's not just public sector and government. A lot of it is applied delivery. If I was asked to explain the way we think about our research, it's very much the application of applied knowledge. So we are looking, business, we are looking to see how can we improve organizational effectiveness, how can we improve the way that there may be working with people to improve productivity, or using different organizational systems, whatever it might be. So we do a lot of work in the public service area, in the implementation space. Not so much policy development, but how do we actually make things happen? And then the third group, it tends to be around governance, and we're currently developing the idea around diversity, but diversity in its broadest sense. So it's different ways of thinking. So one of the issues that's been a concern around applied research for some time is that we get to, is this law or is it accounting? Or, if things become too the word is often siloed, although it's not a word I like too much, but it's very segmented research in small tranches. And we are working very much more in a multi and transdisciplinary way, trying to integrate different bodies of knowledge together. So some of that works with the public service, some of that works with private sector. Just because of where we're located, we tend to end up doing a lot of work with the public service, but we do a lot with defence and private as well.
And if I could add something there that people might find of interest, a number of us academics in the School of Business have actually come from a business background. So, for example, I worked with government for the better part of 15 years, or perhaps a little bit longer if I'm really honest with myself, in leadership executive development across government. I have a number of colleagues who entered academia or had one foot in academia and one foot elsewhere, who actually bring real business experience with them, which also help students to make theory in a variety of areas applicable and to make sense, because we do have those backgrounds ourselves.
And that does lead to, I think there's a question I saw go past saying, are we civilians or part of defence? And all of the academic staff are civilians. We have some people who, in the same way as we've had people come from business, we have some people who've done a military career and then have chosen, I'm thinking particularly of our postgraduate coordinator at the moment, has done his career in Navy, then did a PhD and is now working with us in the school. So people come in from business and also from defence into the school. But once you are working here, everybody is a civilian.
So next question, there's two questions actually for you, Tavis. What time is your usual wake up and how much free time do you have each day?
So generally the wake up will be 7 o'clock for every weekday. However, on a Monday, we'll usually wake up a little bit earlier for inspections, which is when your staff will come through and make sure the accommodation is clean and tidy. So other than a Monday where you'll wake up usually around 6, every other day we'll do a roll call at 7 o'clock in the morning, except not on weekends. How much free time we get each day will depend on which course you study. So School of Business, while they don't have as many contact hours as, say, engineering or science, a lot of your time is spent reading and doing assignments and things like that. So you won't have your timetable might have a lot of free time, but you'll have to use a lot of that to do a lot of research and study. However, in the evenings, you'll have time to do sports, extracurricular activities, and of course on the weekends as well are generally free. And then during the holidays as well, you might have to go and do some military training, or you might get to go back and see your family during those periods as well.
Next question to you, Deborah. Is UNSW Canberra's business degree accredited by any professional organisations?
So UNSW is, as business, is accredited by AACSB, which is one of the major business school accreditation bodies. The reason why I put it that way is that AACSB doesn't accredit a course per se, it accredits the whole delivery process of business at a university. And so we are accredited as part of that, and we were called part of the accreditation that is done by UNSW. So yes.
And Tavis, if I can get you to answer this one, how many hours of lectures and tutorials per unit?
So usually for business, you'll have between 1 and 2 hours for a lecture, and then you'll have a 1 hour usually for a tutorial. However, this can vary depending on the course. So some courses will do an hour and a half lecture and an hour and a half tutorial. And that's usually the split in the School of Business, in my experience, and as well as arts.
And this question, Sam, I might direct to you. If you're straight out of high school, are there any prerequisites? UNSW doesn't have subject prerequisites, but what would you, or assume knowledge, or what would you recommend would be useful to study in Year 11 and 12 for the business program?
Look, I actually think that's quite a difficult question to answer, and I'm very reluctant to advise people on what to do in Years 11 and 12 to prepare them for their business degree. what I will say to people, though, is play to your strengths. So study the things in year 11 and 12 that you are interested in and that can support you to get the ATAR that you're looking for. Once you come into first year business, as Tavis has already said, we don't expect, I mean, we expect you to be able to write, we expect you to be able to read and to do research, but we develop analytical skills with you. We develop not only your knowledge going through a business degree, but we also develop the skills that you need for the degree and post the degree. So I wouldn't worry too much about what to study in year 11 and 12. It's more about making sure that what you do study in year 11 and 12 supports you academically so that you can move into this degree with confidence and with an appropriate ATAR. Debbie, you're nodding. Would you like to add anything to that?
No, I just thought that was absolutely the perfect answer. It's not about, there are no specific skills, subjects that you need in domains of knowledge, but it is about just doing the best that you can in the areas that you have strength in.
So a question again for you, Tavis. How many years are there of mandatory service, so that would be military service, for a business degree?
So the return of service requirements, they're not actually built around what degree you do, they're more your job role. So say as a pilot, you're going to have a lot more years owing than if you were doing something, say I'm doing HR, or if you were coming through the army and you were doing a general service officer. So different specialisations within the services will require a different amount of years that you owe back to defence. So yeah, it's not actually based off your degree as such.
So the next question probably has two parts. I might answer the first part and then pass it over to you, Sam and Deborah. How is prior university study used in admission if someone has a year of study at another university? So in terms of admission, as long as you're doing 0.75 of a full year, so that's 3/4, so generally 6 courses or units at another tertiary institution, based on your grade point average, so the results that you get for all of those courses, that will give you a tertiary entrance rank. So for admission, we will use that rank, or we will use your ATAR from school, whichever is highest. We will always use whichever rank is highest, and as long as that meets our requirement, then you would get an offer to us as long as you have your defence job offer. But I guess the second part of that is, what about credit for study that has been done previously?
And I'm happy to answer that. So if you're seeking credit for a course that you've done at another university, then you simply fill in a form that we have available online. It's not a very difficult process. It does go through student administration, but then it comes to me for the School of Business to assess. And the criteria is that the course that you studied elsewhere must match our course to 70%. So if there's a 70% match, and if the lecturer of that course agrees, then we give you credit for that course. And sometimes what happens is somebody's done a course that doesn't match one of our courses to a 70% level, and so in fact they may get credit for that as a free elective or as one of their electives. So we're very respectful of the studies that people have done at another tertiary institution, at a university, and we will always look at credit applications, seeking to give people the credit where we possibly can.
So the next question is about, at what point do HSC students, or year 11 and 12, to cover off on every state and territory, apply for adjustment to their ATAR? So the actual application process for UNSW Canberra is an online application through UAC, which is the University's Admission Centre. You only ever put that application in the year prior to coming to ADVA. Because it is dependent on having a defence job offer. That opens in August each year, so it is open now for 2021 entry, and on-time applications are till the end of September. You can apply all the way up to December. It'll just cost you more after the end of September. So in terms of that application, your HSC subject adjustment factor points are automatically calculated. UAC does that all for you, and that's based on the degree that you're applying for. So the subjects need to relate to the degree you're applying for, and you can find out exactly what subjects relate if you go to our website, to the UNSW Sydney website, and search for adjustment factors, and that will give you the subjects that you need. The other two adjustment factor scheme, so the elite athletes, performers and leaders, you need to put an application into UNSW. There's no cost to these applications, so we always encourage students to apply because they can't take points off you, they can only award points, and it's worthwhile putting an application in. You have to have that application in for the EAPL scheme before the end of November, so they won't take applications after that date. So please, if it relates to you, put that application in. And then lastly, the access scheme, and there was another question here that talks about the impact of coronavirus, and this is where we would encourage anyone that's been affected this year in their studies to put an application in through the access scheme. This is an application directly to UAC, and it requires some documentation. No cost again to that, so please get that application in. Obviously then they're all assessed, the three different, you can apply for all three adjustment factor schemes. They will all be assessed, and then once your ATARs have been released, those adjustment factors are actually added on to your ATAR, and we see your total selection rank. I'm not sure as students that you ever see your total selection rank, but the universities that are making the offer do see the total selection rank. So next question is another one for you, Tavis. Does the accommodation cost extra?
So it does, but so when you live on base in the accommodation, it'll naturally come out of your pay automatically. So if you have meals at the mess, and your accommodation costs will actually subtract fortnightly out of your pay. So whilst you do actually have to pay for the accommodation, what you would get from the private market, it's extremely discounted. So you're going to be paying very little for accommodation and food, but yeah, it does cost and comes out fortnightly.
And then another one, sort of on the military side of the house, how are the squadrons structured?
So depending on how many applicants come through each year, how many training officers will depend on how many, but roughly there's 4 squadrons, and in each squadron you've got a year level. So you'll have first year, second year and third year. And in each year you'll usually have 2 divisions. So these divisions are just made up of about 40 to 50 people. That's just so they're easier to manage, putting people into groups, and that's where you have your direct supervisor. So you've got 4 squadrons, and then each year level within the squadrons. And within each year level, you'll have usually about 2 divisions. So each squadron will usually have 6 divisions, 2 first years, 2 second and 2 third years.
So this, we might go to Tavis first for this one and then to Deborah and Sam, but is there any advice that we can give to current Year 11 students, I guess, to help them through the process, or anything that could, benefit or that they could look at doing? So maybe Tavis, on the military side and on the Defence Force recruiting side, any advice that you can give?
Yes, I think as you alluded to before, because we don't discriminate on ATAR here, it's just hitting the mark. You're not going to be, as long as you hit the mark, which is 80 for business, as long as you hit that mark coming in, they're not going to grade you off if you got 81 compared to someone who got 98. The difference is going to be in your aptitude, how you interview well at the OSBs and the interviews that you do at DFR. So they're going to depend more on that side. So the university level ranking that you come in for is purely to go, okay, this person is well-rounded, is intelligent enough to do the degree, and we'll discriminate off other factors, which are usually your critical thinking, how your teamwork and how you interview. So I guess my advice would be concentrate on hitting the mark, and then really look at other aspects. So are you doing group sport, team sport? What are you doing? Any extracurricular activities at school? And just really trying to make yourself well-rounded coming in.
Sam and Deborah, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I would say really have a look and talk to defence recruiting, because I would agree entirely with Tavis, which is that the decision is not just made on ATAR, it's made on a whole range of things. And that's kind of what I was hinting at when I was saying that the majority of our students don't come in with an average of 80, because that is part of it, that is your cutoff, but then it's all the other things that go with it. And so I think I would say what you need to be thinking about is, what are Defence Force recruiting looking for? There's lots of advice. They will talk people through from, year 11, year 10 as well. What are how are they going to make the decision? And it's not just about your academics. And academics are really important, and we're bound to say that, but they are. And when you get to ADFA, there's always this discussion about academics, and it's, academics is important, but it's part of a range of things that you have to do. And so make sure you get advice on what are the other things that you can be doing, which are likely to improve the chances of your success of Defence Force recruiting.
Anything to add, Sam?
No, I think that's been answered well.
So next question is, within the Leadership Adjustment Point Scheme, so the EAPL, can you apply for multiple categories? Yes, you can. So if you, for example, have done the Duke of Edinburgh Gold Award and you're a cadet under officer, you can apply for both of those, noting that you can get only a maximum of 5 points within that scheme. So if those two add up, then, that might take you to 4 or 5 points. You absolutely can. So Tavis, one for you. When you graduate from ADFA, do you automatically get the rank of pilot officer for Air Force?
So again, this will depend on your job role as well. So if you're an engineer, you'll be doing an honours year in your 4th year. So you'll be a pilot officer, where other specialisations, you'll actually skip the rank of pilot officer and become a flying officer. So I wouldn't be able to give you every single which one is which. However, on the website, it'll actually indicate once upon graduation what rank you will actually hit. But yeah, generally, if you're doing any more extra training before you actually go and perform your job role, you'll be a pilot officer before being promoted to flying officer.
And another one for you, Tavis, is can you describe the accommodation arrangements at ADFA? Oh, you're just on mute, Tavis.
Sorry. So yeah, as I spoke to before, when you've got divisions of between about 40 to 50 people, that is because we have buildings here which have about 52 rooms. So some of those rooms are for staff to use as an office. So generally there'll be about 50 people in each division, which is reflective of one accommodation block, which has 50 rooms roughly.
Okay, so I think we have answered all of the questions that we have. Obviously, if you would like to ask further questions or we have missed something, please feel free to email. The email address that you can send any other questions to is student.recruitment@adfa.edu.au. So please send those through and we'll answer any questions that you have or that you might have thought of something else. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to our panel, and we look forward to seeing you all here in either next year or years to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.